I'm Alex McClintock. In my last 5-minute talk, I talked about data warehouses in preparation for this talk about data lakes. Now, what you need to think about first of all is the use case. So, data lakes and data warehouses are fundamentally both good for reporting. They're both good for analytics, and they're both good for business intelligence. They sit in behind the operational databases, collating data from multiple sources so that they can be used for those reports and analytics. So what's the difference? Well, fundamentally, when you look at data lakes as opposed to data warehouses, you're considering these three main criteria. And the criteria are scalability, flexibility, and effort. How much upfront work do you need to do versus ongoing work? So let's look at scalability first of all. So fundamentally, data lakes were built for big data. If your reporting requirements are already being satisfied by a traditional database and nobody's having trouble producing them, then you don't have a problem with scalability. Typically, your data warehouse ran on one machine or, if distributed, a handful of machines, whereas data lakes were designed to store data across tens or hundreds of machines. So that's the first thing. These machines did two things. They first of all provided a distributed file system for storing that data across loads of machines. And also they provided a distributed compute. Now, some people think that the distributed compute is not necessarily part of the data lake, but to me, I think it does have to be. So, historically, Hadoop provided the first open source implementation of the data lake through its distributed file system HDFS and its distributed compute. Originally, that was MapReduce, and then it became containerized with Yarn. And nowadays, many things can be run on Yarn. However, of course, it's not the only way of doing it. What's next? Flexibility. So what things do we need to consider about flexibility? Fundamentally, with a data warehouse, you're provided with SQL as the interface into your data. You already have to have everything in your database in its normal tabular format so that your SQL can query that data. Whereas with a data lake, you're not structured so firmly, and you can write code that is more flexible than that SQL code. That enables you to do a wider variety of data science. It's important to realise that with a data lake, you are also typically building a data warehouse out of your data lake technology. But you typically have to make sure that the files are put in the right place, in the right format, so that it can be used in that way. And fundamentally, if something new comes along, then you can typically use that as well. Effort. This is, I think, perhaps the key to the issue, and it is not well understood. With a data warehouse, you have to do all your work up front, figuring out what sort of reports and queries you want to do, and designing your database accordingly. Now, that puts a lot of upfront work, and it means that you need to put a lot of money into implementing it straight away. Let's look at the timelines. So, here's a typical data lake ingestion. So, first of all, you get the data into your system. And with a data lake, that can be as simple as copying a file across. You still need to do data cleaning, data validation, making sure that your data is self-consistent. And that has to be done in both data warehouse and data lake scenarios, but you can delay it until later. Likewise, if you decide that you need to rebuild your data into a specific model that's suitable for your business, then you can transform it at a later step. Finally, or at least finally here, you can decide that you need your data to be available through a data warehouse-like system, even if it's implemented on a data lake, and you can convert the data into files and schemas suitable for accessing through a data warehouse. So those are the main things you need to consider. I do have a fair amount to talk about whether you implement these on-premise or in the cloud, and also how to what you should expect from like a post-data lake sort of world. And that's an interesting subject which I think I'll leave for another talk. Any questions? Contact me through LinkedIn. Thank you.